Fundamentals Test 5. Most of this stuff is fairly common. I tell you, one of the things I found out years ago, though, is if I take people that I'm trying to teach, and I've known things for so long, I think it's common knowledge to everybody. That's a mistake. So some of the stuff, if you already know it, it's because everybody needs to be taught this stuff. So the passenger side in the United States is which side?
I'm going to go with the right side.
Okay, it's going to be the right side.
Better than the wrong side.
Yeah. Either the right or the left side, depending on how the vehicle is viewed. Whenever you see, the reason we say passenger side, if you say right or left, that's kind of subjective, because you can be, most people when they're standing in front of the car working on it, they think left is is the passenger side. But if you read in the shop manual where it's talking about right or left, they're always talking about sitting in the seat of the car with you facing the same way the car is going. If they say right, that's the passenger side.
So
that's in your book. That's actually going to be 1. Oh, it's going to be A. Excuse me. The vehicle with the vehicle with the engine in the front can be any of these. Is it possible for one with the engine in the back to be front wheel drive?
Yes.
Can you think of one?
Volkswagen?
Front wheel drive, engine in the back? Engine in the rear, front wheel drive.
Forklift?
That's pretty close, but no, I don't know of one that's got the engine in the rear that's front wheel drive.
Forklift is.
Yeah, but that's not a car. That's not a vehicle. It's a piece of equipment. Vehicle identification number since 1981 is how many characters long?
17.
17 characters long.
I just counted.
The 10th character represents the year of the vehicle. If the 10th character is a Y, what year is the vehicle?
2030.
You don't even have that on among your choices there.
Ding dong, it's 2000.
If it's a Y, what is it?
2000.
2000, because they did not use which letters?
What was it? X and Z?
I?
No.
O.
I, O, Q, U, or Z.
That's it.
They didn't use I, O, Q, U, or Z. It starts in 1980 with A being 80, B being 81, C being 82, D being 83. That they didn't use I, O, Q, U, or C. And whenever they got to 2001, they started using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But in 2010, they went back to A. And then 2011 is B, and so on and so forth. So just remember that. Look, as a matter of fact, on the door, I've got a little legend with all of those on there. So you can basically look at that and tell. They didn't use I because it looks like a 1. They didn't use O or Q because they look like zeros. And a U and a V looks real similar whenever somebody writes them. So you want to make sure that you write the one. But they also needed it to work out so that they had the right number of them. So Y is a 2000. The way that I remember them is I have a little memory bug. F is 85. S is 95 because an S looks like a 5. V is 97 because a V looks like a sideways 7. P is 93 because P and 3 rhyme. You got me? So, I just came up with that whenever I got this thing. And I'll tell you something else. If you look at the door of the car and look at the production date, you may have the wrong year model.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is not accurate. If they change that thing in mid-model year and you're seeing one that was made in like the August of 2000, it may be a 2001 model and you may buy the wrong parts. And I have seen a Dodge Dakota, or Durango rather, that came in here, a purple one. And whenever it was injured, got run into, the body shop, a lot of the times, if you listen to the auto body guy at the body shop when he's getting a door to replace your door, if you've got a purple vehicle, he'll call his part supplier, his used part supplier, and he'll say, I need a driver's side door for a 2003 Durango, and I need a purple one if you got one. And if they happen to have one the right color, he hangs that door on there. He ain't got to paint it or nothing. Well, what's the problem? The VIN sticker, paint match is perfect. The VIN sticker on the one I'm thinking about that came in here was for a 2002 pickup truck, and it was on a 2003 Durango. Wow. It just happened to be the same color. So you look at that door sticker, if somebody's changed out that door and it's still got the original door sticker on it, the VIN number ain't right, the year model ain't right, there's a whole bunch of stuff that ain't right. So you're a whole lot better off to look under the dash, under the windshield out there, and have you a flashlight in your pocket. Everybody that's serious about doing this kind of work should have a flashlight, a screwdriver in your pocket, and a pen, at least. A flashlight, a pen, and a screwdriver. If you want to be really a belt and suspenders person, you'll have a magnet in your pocket too.
I need a magnet as much as I
Yeah,
draw
and
stuff.
everybody, one of the reasons that I quit carrying a magnet the last time my other one got broke is because everybody depends on me to provide their magnet. You know what I mean? And people will depend on you to provide their tools for them, if you will. And I don't have a magnet for everybody. And I don't loan out my Streamlight to anybody. You know what I mean? Because invariably, they have it over there. They left it laying in the bench, and everybody says, well, I don't do that. I'll always bring it back. Well, I'll reach for it, and it's not there. Even if I just loaned it to them 5 minutes ago, it ain't there, and I need it. This is my lifeline here, this light right here. Gotta have it, huh?
He uses
Huh?
it for
Those things
extra-
aren't cheap either.
Well, they're not too terribly bad if you buy them online. But the quadruple A batteries are what they take too. Them little skinny batteries. Anyway, how did I get off on all that? The first character of the vehicle identification number is the country of origin. Where was the vehicle built? It has 5 as the first character.
United States.
The United States of America. The VECI label, what's VECI stand for?
That's the Vehicle Emission Control Information.
That's right.
What?
That's what it stands for. It includes all of these except A, horsepower and torque rating of the engine, B, valve lash, C, engine identification, D, spark plug tip and gap.
I didn't see valve lash on there.
Valve lash is only on the ones where you have to adjust valve lash, and only on some of them, so that is a lousy choice. But it does not have horsepower and torque rating of the engine on the VECI decal. Some of them it'll have valve lash on there, but that is ancient history, and you don't hardly ever see that anymore. The valve adjustments that I used to have to do very regularly were on Volkswagen Rabbits back when I worked at the dealer. And we used to do those routinely. It cost $18 to have the valves adjusted, and they had little shims in those cam followers we had to change and all that. Vehicle safety certification label includes all except what?
Tire pressure recommendation.
Yeah. Now that's kind of a stupid choice too, because on a lot of these Fords, you will see it, the tire pressure recommendation on there. When we're trying to determine how much air to put in the tire, where do we find that information? We do not look on the side of the tire and see what the maximum inflation pressure is, because that ain't gonna be right for that car. Because a lot of the times the maximum inflation pressure will be like 50 pounds or something, when the car is supposed to have 30 or 32. So on one of our Crown Victorias, was that you that I was working with the other day on that? Or somebody? Anyway, they said, well, I don't see the tire pressure on the door anywhere. And I says, well, let's walk around to the other side of the car. And we opened the back door, and it was inside the right rear, which is kind of crazy that they put it back there. But you can find a sticker somewhere, because they're going to have that on there. You know, that's an important thing to do. What are the characters embedded in most engine blocks that are used for identification?
Casting.
That's the casting.
That's a casting number, and it's pretty cool. You can call your parts guy. If you've got an engine like one of the ones we got on the stand over here, you can call a parts guy. He can look that casting number up, and he can tell you what year models and everything used that particular casting number of block, and you can get an idea of what you need there.
Hey, Parks guy, he's talking about you.
What?
All right, let me see here. If the first character of the VIN's an S, where was it made?
England.
England.
In England.
Tea and companies.
All right.
Oh, today.
Technician A says the lower the bin number is, the cleaner. This is talking about emissions. Technician B says SULEV has cleaner standards than ULEV. Which technician is correct?
Both right.
Huh? Okay, what do you think? Everybody like that answer? That's both of them. What's SULEV stand for?
Super, ultra, low emissions vehicle.
Yeah, and then you got ultra low emission vehicle. Now, and what would you consider a zero emission vehicle?
The Tesla.
Huh?
The Tesla. The battery car.
Yeah, the battery car. There's been some fires on those Teslas. You hear about them fires on them Tesla cars?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They don't always catch on fire.
No, there's some of them have though. They're pretty cool. I've got a film on here somewhere where I was walking around one of those things looking at it up there, and the guy that troubleshoots them and goes out and fixes them when they give trouble, was standing there. And I was asking him a lot of questions about it. It's a cool looking car. It kind of looks like a Porsche or something,
Yep.
or a Lotus. Okay. Which character of the VIN indicates the engine code?
The 8th.
Is that a universal code like the year model?
Uh,
No, it's not, because every car has got different
oh,
engines.
yeah.
The engine code is always the 8th, but they're going to be different codes for different, different automakers are going to have different codes for that 8th one. Sometimes when you're looking up on All Data or one of these other shop manual things, you're going to see that they'll ask you, or even on this wireless vehicle interface, they're going to ask you what the 8th digit is so that they can determine which engine you've got. Sometimes you got to go look at the VECI decal, though, if they've got that, on these Asian cars, it's got that funky
Yes.
3AFE whatever
Oh,
engine and all.
it's a nightmare.
Is that a nightmare for the parts guy?
Yes.
Have you people come in there when you're working parts counter and you go and they say, I need such and such a part, and they don't know what year model their car is. They don't know what engine it has in it.
All the time.
I have people come in here to have work orders written up. They're not sure what year model their car is, and they don't have a clue what engine is in it. And some of them aren't even sure what it is, if it's a Malibu or or whatever,
I do not know what kind of car you're driving.
I know.
Yeah, you've seen that.
Annoys the crap out of me.
You've seen that, haven't you? Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. Well, and see the parts guy at the dealership even, he'll come in there and he'll say, I'm working on a, X number, whatever model, Ford it is, and there's this little thing back there on the valve cover that's orange and it's kind of up high and back over to the side and it's got some wires and maybe a vacuum line plugged into it and it's mounted with one bolt and it's got a little, and can you look that up for me? And you're sitting here going, you want the guy to know what he's asking for anyway. But usually when they come asking for that, they've broke it and they have no clue.
What the heck it is.
They know that it's broke.
What's worse is when the husbands send their wives in to get the parts.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah,
No, because those wives are clueless.
yeah.
Hey.
Well, one of the things I've always told everybody, and this is a fundamentals course, you got to see the parts guy's point of view, and you got to try to make it easy. You know what I used to do? I've got my clipboard in here that I used to carry when I was at the dealer, and I can show it to you. I wrote down, if I used a lot of the same kind of parts, I would write down the part number of the parts that I was using. Like on the Ford, you got a prefix, a suffix, and a basic part number, an F2AZ 13444A or whatever. And I would go in there and I would have some of those part numbers memorized. And while everybody else was at the parts counter, stepping and fetching and having them dragging their microfiche around and looking it up, I would go and say, I need a, give them the part number, and they'd throw it on the counter. I'd be back out there working on my car while these other guys are wasting time in the parts room trying to explain what it is they need. You see what I'm saying? And so if you're using the same part a lot, and one of the things that irritated me about the parts department, the way it was run at that place and in so many other places, if you let the computer tell you what to stock in your parts department, there'll come a time when you ain't got hardly nothing on the shelf that you need to sell. I don't know if Lundy's run into that or not, but they put the stuff, when they would pull the stuff, Ford would send out these things that said priority return, and they would pull all these parts off the shelf and put them in blue card to be shipped back to Ford. And we would get really irritated because a lot of stuff they were shipping back was stuff we changed out really regularly. And, as a mechanic, when you draw the thing, if you can get your part, get the car fixed, get it out of there, you've made you some money. But if you have to pull the car in, do your troubleshooting, order the part, pull it back out, you're not going to get paid nothing until you get a chance to put the part on there. You got me? All right, so if they've got it on the shelf, that's good. And for years, the Ford place where I worked over there you could go in there and ask them for a turn signal switch for a 65 Mustang. They'd have one on the shelf. That's how many parts they had. And then they started yanking them and sending them back. And so I went in there one day and I told the parts manager, we were always crabbing about that. And I said, Gerald, I need you to get something out of Blue Card for me. And he says, what's that? I said, I need a E9AZ 9C987AA. He says, okay, and he looked on his computer and he goes, how did you know that was in Blue Card? I said, everything's in Blue Card. Everything I want's in Blue Card. I put those things on, 2 or 3 times a week, and you're putting them in Blue Card to send them back. And he says, oh, I ain't gonna do that. I don't know what you're talking about. And about that time, a guy from the front counter stuck his head around and says, hey, Gerald, I got a sale for some wheel bearings that is in Blue Card. Can I get them out? And he kind of got mad about that. But we used to just really tear our hair out about that. But the parts guy's got a legitimate gripe too. If the mechanic goes in there and he gets the wrong part, for whatever reason, then he brings it back and he tries to act like the parts guy looked it up wrong. Let's see, year of the vehicle is indicated by what digit? The 10th. The vehicle safety certification label includes what?
Gross vehicle weight.
Huh? VIN, gross vehicle weight, month and year of
I'm
manufacture.
gonna say it's all of these.
All of these. And a lot of the times when you're talking to your parts people, I'm telling you, you need to have a good rapport with your parts person.
Yeah.
And they need to be able to know that when you come in there and ask them for something, you know what you're doing. And I tell you who's got their finger on the pulse of how things are going in the shop and knows the people that are competent mechanics, the parts guy does. He can tell. He can tell who knows what they're doing and who's a yo-yo out there. And but anyway, the long and the short of it is when you go in there, a lot of the times they're going to ask you. It's a whole lot better, and everybody's got digital camera or on your phone or something. Let's do this. Watch this. When we're working on something, before we ever even go see the parts guy, let's pull our phone out and let's pop a picture of the safety decal. And let's walk in there with that in our pocket. And that way we don't have to make a trip back out to the car. If he says, do you know the build date? Can you give me the last date of the VIN? Can you tell me the engine code? I need to know this, that, and the other. You pull up that thing on your phone and say, there it is, buddy. Have a look. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, when I got a digital camera, it just changed, it rocked my whole world when I was, you know, just wonderful stuff. Yeah, I have a digital camera with me everywhere now. So, where can vacuum hose routing information be found?
None of these.
Actually, the VECI decal has it, believe it or not. Under the hood, open the hood, you'll see how they're routed.
Smarty pants.
Now, what we used to do, what we would have over there was we would have this, I guess really something to have two Marines in here. But anyway, whenever we would go over there, they got into, everything's have a tendency to deteriorate sometimes in a shop where there's got the same bunch of people working in there. And so what they do is they'd give these line mechanics, some of them, you know, not all of them line mechanics, but we had some line mechanics that would want to do the nuts and bolts work, but they just get totally overwhelmed with the vacuum hoses, like on these 87, 88, 89 model vehicles. They had so many vacuum hoses and a carburetor on them and all that if they did. And so, of course, by 88, most of the carburetors were gone, but the vacuum hoses were really a booger bear in the mid-80s. They looked like a road map of Clarksburg, man. These were awful nasty. So they would actually put the engine in there and tighten all the bolts, and then they would send it over to me and let me straighten out the dadgum vacuum lines. And if it took me 3.5 hours to get the vacuum lines straightened out, following that schematic and wiring thing, you know, they would take it away from the guy that did the line work because he's supposed to be able to put that back himself, right? And but anyway, if you don't, we're going to get away from the notion of if this vacuum line was hanging over here and I think this might have been where it went, or you know what I'm saying, because that was crazy because you'd wind up with stuff not working like it should. Where is the VECI label?
Under the hood.
Under the hood.
It's going to be under the hood. Well, they say under the hood near the fan shroud, but is that always true?
No.
I don't like a lot of the answers this test has got on the thing. Sometimes you'll look all over the place down here and see it, and you'll look up and it'll be on the underside of the car, and it's kind of nasty too. What's the worst thing you can do? Don't spray carburetor spray on it to clean the dust off of it, or you've washed the ink off a lot of the times and you've got nothing. Here's something else. If you happen to have an instrument cluster off and you've got it, somehow got a fingerprint on the face of the instrument cluster, if you wipe it with any kind of solvent or anything, you're going to wipe the numbers off of it. And I've seen that happen. It just wiped the numbers off the instrument clusters. Be careful whenever you're using these solvents because you'll mess up something that's going to, you know, cause you some grief later on. Let's see. Which tier of emission standards is the least stringent?
3.
Actually, the least stringent is the one you look at. A. That's the lowest, right? Lowest is the dirtiest.
I only said 3 because bottom.
Which tier became effective in 2009?
2.
Tier 2. Tier 1 standards, what?
Both.
A may be different for cars and light trucks. B went into effect in 94. C, both A and B. D, neither A nor B.
Let's go with both.
Let's go with both A and B. Yep. Zero emission vehicles, A, are either electric or fuel cell powered. B, produce zero tailpipe emissions. C, both A and B. D, neither A nor B. That's going to be C. And finally, Technician A says the calibration codes may be located on the PCM housing. Technician B says some calibration codes must be accessed by a scan tool. both those guys are right. I will tell you that a lot of these vehicles, and we've got this IDS in here now. So when you plug into a Ford, if you go in there, in some cases, you may find that it needs a reflash, Be particular before you do the reflash on those things. You need to find out what that reflash is being done for. Because sometimes a reflash is as simple as, like we used to have some that would stall during parking lot maneuvers. And we would reflash them to take care of that problem. Or we would reflash them because of something the transmission was doing at road speed. It was hunting in and out of fourth gear. And you'd have to reflash them for that. A reflash is only whenever you've done your other diagnostics, or if you've got some kind of particular concern that's directly addressed by the reflash. It's really important to know when to reflash one. We've got the stuff to flash them. You're also reflashing sometimes when you replace instrument clusters and other controllers. They have to be the stuff from the old vehicle, as built data needs to be put in there. Incidentally, something as simple as replacing the radio. Olivia's Explorer, we put a radio in it. No, you weren't involved with that, were you? We put a radio in that Explorer, and we got it. We actually got it all done. And hers has got a USB port in the console, so she can charge her phone or play music through the USB port. Well, we put the radio in because the other one went totally dark. We sent it off to have an exchange unit sent in, and it was fairly expensive. We popped the radio back in the dash on that '08 Explorer. Now her USB port wouldn't charge her phone battery, and she couldn't play music through her little jump drive there anymore. And so what we did there was, when I got the IDS in here, we plugged in and reflashed, got the as-built data from Ford, because if you got a subscription, you can do that. And I was able to reprogram that, flash that radio so that that USB port would wake up and it would play her music and all, because it didn't even recognize the USB port. Everything else on the radio worked fine, but the USB port was dark. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you had to reprogram, you had to flash the radio so that the USB port would be awake. So there's a lot of little nuances you have to know about these things, and that's one of the reasons we need stuff like Identifix, and it's not a bad idea to be a member of ITN and do have your ALLDATA and all. Be willing to go dig for some stuff, because that's part of what you're supposed to be able to do. Anybody got any questions or comments, and did I bore you to tears?